It's funny, isn't it? But I'm not so airy-fairy now, I'm more practical. Do you know what I mean? But I do feel we're guided. I'd like to talk to you about The Mirror Image Through the Mist of Time, which is my second novel, which sort of follows on. They are again 7 short stories with links, which I recently made based on Chaucer's Tales. It's a group of 7 people in an inn, and there's a character from each story, and the situations and the conversation is just a lead up to the next one that's coming. The first story is called The Greenest of Granary, which is 1800 set farming. Just a story of family issues, the way people get on or don't get on. There's a hidden thing about a child that was drowned at birth. There's actually a water scenario in all these stories. Rivers and waters seem to be quite prolific. A child that's kept a secret. And it's just about families, the way they don't get on, they get on. A writer comes into it that sort of heals them. So she seems to help matters, because it all builds up and they all have this quite, squabble type of thing. Rosie's story, Out of the Shadows, is a totally different story. It's to do with a circus. It's quite fascinating. Everyone having hidden depths. Everyone has a double personality in this one. For instance, the clowns have masks, and he does take the part of a magician. He's quite a cruel person. He's quite nasty to animals. It's slightly black, not really suitable for children. The ringmaster's always standing in the shadows. He gets the girl in the end. The girl is friendly with the clown, but there's another girl there that is she's a gypsy woman, quite how would you put it, quite sensual, and has an affair with a character called Orlando, who is working in the circus. But the ringmaster has a duel with him. It's out of jealousy, and Orlando dies. He's been quite bad. So it's all about, if you don't do the right thing, coming to a sticky end there type of thing. It's very colourful, this particular one, and it's not in the same vein of being religious and holy as the other stories. Rosalie's Memoirs is a very interesting one, set in Elizabethan period in the Scottish court of, or Mary Queen of Scots. A really lovely love story between this man. He can't really speak his feelings. He's a very domineering mother, and they're really lovely together, the two people, but she stops the relationship, and he has an arranged marriage. He never really gets over things. The girl goes on and she has a fling with somebody, then leaves the court, and she travels. She actually goes into a convent. It then goes on to Italy. Then she travels back up to Scotland, and she meets a future husband who is it's based on Rizzio, who was an advisor to Mary Queen of Scots, and she marries him, and they're really happy. But they have one of her children. She wasn't quite sure who the father was, is adopted, but the daughter does actually commit suicide because she goes into a holy order, and she's manipulated by this man. And the one, Rosalie, it's Edward and Rosalie's love story. They always still love each other, even though she's married again, and they do meet up every so often. That doesn't really have a happy ending, because she loses her husband. But I think Edward was always in her life, but not in the way they wanted. The 5th and 6th story, that they link. It's actually 2 parts. It's Children of the Rose Flame, and the part 1 is the Rose Cross, linked to do with the Cathars. 2 sisters, one that is quite permissive and the other one is very strict. Secretly she has 6 children, don't ask me how, but she does. And there's a flood in the cave, and all but 1 child dies, but 2 are brought up with the uncle, well, the father of them. He has a chaperone, but there's a slight incestual feeling between the uncle and one of the girls. He runs away to a circus. That one, and that is more to do with drowning. They're all reborn again in a Cambridge candle as Lady Quakers, and they all live to an age to when they've dealt with what they're supposed to deal with, but they all die fairly young, in their 30s or 40s, except for one that goes to, she's very spiritual, and she goes to Coventry and does some prison work and brings some women out of prison that have very similar personalities, and they all she starts a Quaker house and has some good works. There are two male characters in both of these that are similar, carpenters and wood carvers, those sorts of people. So you have the male interest. The last story, Anna, is quite complicated. It's medieval. It's in a monastery, a German and Russian monk and a woman that helps, because women used to help and do the cooking for the religious people those days. It's quite complicated. She goes to India with one of the monks on a religious quest and quite likes her time there, comes back. The other monk develops leprosy, she nurses him, and she goes with him to the Middle East and they adopt various children. One of the girls, who's half English, half Indian, comes back to Europe. I've had to make it actually Venice, because people travel to Venice more than other places, to bring back, her mother's made quite a lot of tapestries and various religious diaries to bring them back to the early Quakers. She's quite a young girl, and then she meets up with the German monk, but it's only a friendship. They then travel to Russia. He becomes involved in monastic work. She becomes interested in a simple life and becomes involved with a gypsy group of people that live in a wooded area, and she meets a man there, goes into the mountains, and she has a marriage in a cave, and they then go back and live a really, really lovely life. She gets involved in jewellery making, and they used to dive for amber in those days, so she makes quite a lot of jewellery and also does healing for some women, and has a lovely life for this man. He likes to go out hunting, and she does die giving birth, so he's then left. But one of the children, the daughters, called Moonbeam, he's really nice and helps him through what he had. And he does become friendly with the monks, so the two men have a brother, quite a close brother relationship. So that is, the Russian one was a bit split, because I sort of went down one route and then I went to Russia and became interested in the gypsy way of life and the wooded areas, and so I brought my travels into that. So that was the second book.